Welcome everyone to our discussion of Darkei Talmud. In this chapter we're talking about comparisons, how to make comparisons. We'll go back to the beginning. Lamedis hadin misvara. Okay, he said there's two ways you can learn dinim. One is because it's written in the Torah. The other one is svara. Svara means that there's a logical connection between one subject and the next. Okay, so if two subjects are comparable, then we can move the din from one to the next. If they're kal v'chomer, we can move the din one to the other. Okay, so that's what we're involved in now. Now, when we do move dinim around from one subject to the other, he's going to tell us the following. Okay, let's see, get down there. He says like this. Omnam, im acher shloman hadin, mimiludo v'netak etzlo, im hasnifin, im besnifei also hadin, yeh b'mailas rabo u'bederech v'signon shelo v'lo yoter, o im yeh derech v'signon sheyesh b'talmid b'shar dinim shebou meforshim b'Torah, v'zeh yesh machlokas. Okay, he says like this. Very interesting. Okay, we said we can learn things through Mamatzino and Binyanav, but we have a little bit of a machlokas when it comes to moving a din from one subject to the next. If the makabel can, if what goes on in the makabel can affect the din that was imported. Let's read that carefully. Omnam acher once you've taken the din from A and you transported it to B, okay? In the snifei hadin, if there's certain aspects of the din, does that have to be equal to the source? Let's talk about the source and the target. The source is the melamed and the milmad is the target, okay? So if when you import into the target from the source, are there certain snifei, certain items of the law that will be affected by the target? Oh, or not? Oh, imiyeh b'derech signon sheyesh l'talmud b'shar dinei shebohu hamaforshim b'Torah. Again. In besnifei also hadini yeh b'mailas rabo u'b'derech b'signon shelo v'lo yoter. Do you say that the target always has to be equal to the source, completely? Or do you say no, that there's certain minor aspects that can change according to the target? You import the major idea from the source, but it is affected by the target's environment. B'zeh yesh machlokas. Yesh mahen אומרים כי מאחר שזה הדין למדו מאחר ולא בו מפורש בו בדין עצמו בסניפו בסגנון ובכל אחד אומרים דיו. Some people say no. Once you import a din from another source, so then all the aspects of that din have to be the same. Okay? We're going to call that don minei uminei. That means we take it wholesale from the source to the target and nothing can change. The yesh omrim, some people say no. Ki b'snifei hadin b'signanav efshar liyos bo b'mailis chamur yoter mirabo. Some people say no. When you import the din from the source to the target, if that target has certain chumras, that will make this imported din also machmir, like the target, and it'll come out that the din will be more chumrah than the source that you learned it from. Normally we want to say that the Talmud can never be greater than the Rav, but in certain snifei dinim, people say yes, it can be, and that's called don minei v'ukabasre. Don minei, you take the target from the source, but you set up that din now in the environment of the target, and therefore it can come out even stronger. We're going to give a little bit of example of that too. Okay, it's either don minei or minei. No, you have to import the din exactly as it was in the source into the target, or no, don minei b'ukabasrei. Or in certain sniffing, you can say it has certain chumras of the target. Kedis b'perek shus shus edis u'tchilas nida. Nofa machlokas ben chacham Reb Shimon gabe mikvah v'oma shnehem lo lamdu ela misota v'duk v'tishkach. Okay, so look over there. I'm going to give another example. I think I took an example from Nida exactly. Umasha man domine v'ukibasrei lechumra v'alolakula loam. Okay, whenever we say that you're going to import a din from the source to the target, and when we say the target does affect the din, we'll only say it's mochum. We'll never say that the target will the environment of the target will end up with a cooler. So this whole thing only works with the chum. Okay. Okay. So there's not. That's in. I'm sorry. Neither. Oops. That's the wrong thing. Let me just change that there. Okay, neither. Let's look at the case of neither mem gimel. Okay, there we have Omer of Papa, Kitanai, Menayim l'Rabbis Nogeya b'Shichvat Zera. Okay, we want to know about touching Shichvat Zera. Taman Loma o Ish, Pligei Tanai Ba'alma. The Ika Damin and Domine Umine, the Ika Damin and Domine V'Huka Basrei. So we're going to expel all this out. Don't get nervous about it. Laman da'oma domine umine. So we make the following analogy. Ma sheretz v'negia af shichvat zera. Excuse me. Ma sheretz v'negia af shichvat zera v'negia. Umine ma sheretz kadasha af shichvat zera kadasha. So we're going to import the din that just like a sheretz creates tumah when you touch it, we're going to import that din into shichvat zera, that when you touch shichvat zera, also you will get tameh. But now he says uminei, which means the imported din of being tameh when you touch a shichvat zera will have the same kamos, the same amount, as the sheretz. Ma sheretz kadasha, you have to touch an adasha of a sheretz in order to get metana. So too, the shichvat zera has to be kadasha. Okay? So we imported the din of tameh into the target of shichvat zera, and exactly the kamus of the isur, or the tameh, which is adasha, gets imported also. That's called don minei uminei. However, there's another man da'omer. By the way, it's just a Gemara. I just, only just formatted. Ulaman da'omer don minei v'huka ba'asrei. He learns this way. Yes, it's true. Ma sheretz menegia av shichvat zera menegia. Yes, the first part, definitely, we're going to learn that the target shichvat zera has tumah menegia, just like sheretz. Very good. But he says v'huka ba'asrei. Ma shichvat zera l'roas mashu. Af benogeya v'mashu. He says we're going to be much more chumrah though. In shichvat zera, the din there is
the roa is b'mashu, that he becomes tameh just by being roa mashu.
Right. He just has to see mashu. So also the negeya that we imported is also with a mashu, which is a chumrah, right? It's not kadasha. So you're going to get the person going to get tameh by touching just the mashu of it.
Right.
Okay? So there we go. We're importing the din of tumah. The question is, the sviva, the environment of the target will affect the din. So some people say, no, you can never be more chumrah than the source. That's done minei. If the source of sheretz is adasha, so then the target, even though there's chumras in shichvat zera, we don't care. We take it in wholesale and we say it's kadosha. The other person says, no, since we find certain chumras in shichvat zera, we're going to let that affect the din. And we're going to say it's a mashu. Okay? So that's his little piece, the domine gulka basrei. Now to machlokas. Okay?
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward.
That's straightforward. Right. When you format it, you see it.
Right.
Ha'olam keshahayu hanosim. Oh, now here's was the difficult part, and I discussed this with my chaver, and he has a way of explaining it, so we're going to use his explanation. Le'olam keshahayu hanosim michomra mishpatim asher yinasu aleim hem chiyuv shlili isabaheter otomei v'taro kiyotzibo o perishie nose echad umishpatim asher yinose alav yesh machlokas t'tayim or mayim so lo tochel lahakshus v'lo melisnei chadim. Oh, he says like this: when you're talking about a machlokas, which is we're going to learn that today. We can do it. Opposites, real opposites, right? One person A says the din is chayiv, and the other one says it's mutter, or the other one says asur, and it doesn't matter. But the total opposites are tummy and tahor. So you can't now, or there's a machlokus. He says, or there's the din is different, one to the other. Tom and one is says that the Dublin this Mulvo says it's a tom. Okay, so when you ever have a machlokus, you cannot extend, and you say listen echad. What does that mean? Rotzomar shiyomer hahios kal meoso hanosim or meoso hamishpatim umimenu nilmad ha yoter chomo. Learn the kal of one of those two subjects, and then I'll be able to extend the din to other subjects. In other words, once you see a machlokus between opposites, chayiv and shli, or mutter and asur, or tamei and tahor, you cannot extend to a third case. You cannot presume what these people would hold in a third case. That's going to be the key here. And we're going to spell it out a little, okay? Even though the explanation is not going to be too clear, but that's the point here. If you have a machlokus between two people in opposites, so you cannot per se understand what they would hold in a middle position. And we're going to give an example of that. But that's what he wants to say here. It's not clear what they would hold in a third case. Okay? Learn one case and I would know the third case would definitely be true or not. Okay, why? Learn the kal of one, and I'll learn certainly the mochomer case. In other words, they will have to write a third case, and they could not just rely on you generating the third case from the machlokas. Ki hanotzi rishon kal etzel achiv, hine chavero chomer ken, v'im hu chomer etzel achiv, hine chavero efsheshios kal etzlo. Or behalf. If one person has a chomer din, he's more chomer than the other person in the machlokas, in the third case, you don't know what he will hold. Or vice versa. Okay, we're going to have to spell that out. Okay, because I said this is without a live case, very hard to understand what he's saying. If you have one subject and you have a lot of different laws about that subject, and there's a machlokus about those laws, hine hadin shehu kal etzel hacholek echad hu chamor etzel chavaro. So if they're arguing in prate dinim, it's very hard to medayik to a third case. So we're going to have to spell out that third case. V'hachomer le'echad kal. Ulechein lo tochel asos mehem rotz l'ma menose ke'elu diu klal min echad lechavaro. Since it's a machlokus, miketz al ketzer, it's very hard now to medayik a third case. It's going to have to be written down. V'chein name b'mishpatim elu ke'elu rotz l'ma sheyesh machlokus v'al zeh bo l'talmud l'hodia kocho shover plomi. Okay, here's the Talmud say kocho. So the point is like this. We're going to try to medayik a third case from a machlokus, and when we see this, it's going to be built in Bochrach. That's going to be the setup here. That's what he's trying to say. So I brought a case here from Brachas, and I hope that will demonstrate what he's trying to say. It says like this: Hakor et hashma below hashmir ozno. Someone is reading the Shema Yisrael, Shema Kenu, but he's not saying it loud enough that he can hear what he's reading. So here we have a machlokas. The Tanna Kama says you're still Yotze, even though you didn't hear what you said. And Rav Yossi says no, you have to actually hear, because Shema means to physically hear. So the Tanna Kama says you're Yotze because Shema just means you have to understand, and that you don't. It doesn't mean physically hearing. And Rav Yossi say no, Shema is literal. You have to actually literally hear what you're saying. Okay, so according to Shema, I just made a little chart. According to Shema, lo Shmi is lo is no. So we're going to talk about lechatchila and bidi evet, because it says hakar et hashma, one who already read the Shema. Okay, so that's going to be talking about bidi evet. So our little case here is about bidi evet, right? The Tanna Kama says bidi evet you're yotzi, and Rav Yossi says bidi evet you're not yotzi. Correct? Is that clear?
Yes. No, yeah, I got it.
So now the question is, can we medayek to lechatchila? That's going to be the whole situation. Can we guess what the Tanna Kama and Rav Yossi was told lechatchila? So he wants to say you can't, and he's going to show you the Gemara says you can't either. The Gemara tries to medayek, and he's going to push it away. Okay, what would you like to say? It's either, well, what would you say? If they're arguing bidi evet, lo yotze or yotze, so all of them should probably say lechatchila what?
Well, let's take the easy one. If you're not yotze bidi evet, you certainly would not be yotze lechatchila.
That's correct. That's obvious.
That's obvious, right?
What about the Tanna Kama?
If you yotze b'di evet, you don't know if you yotze l'chatchila or not.
Exactly. You don't know. So that's exactly what he wants to say. You can't medayek when there's a machlokus of yes and no, yotze or not yotze. You can no longer medayek. It's not mukhrach anymore. So let's see how he says. The Rav Yossi. So they brought a case. Dilma, they brought a case of separating truma. I'm not going to get into it. Dilma Rebbe Yehudi v'Om Rebbe Kriyat Shema di'evid. So they want to say here in this case, forget about the application, but they say here Gabe Kriyat Shema Nami di'evid in lechatchila lo. They want to say that the case in truma is Rebbe Yehuda. By the way, the Tosfos says Rebbe Yehuda said Tanna Kama. They want to medayek that the Tanna Kama holds that you're yotzi b'di evet, but not lechatchila. Normally, when you teda, how do we know? Here's the right. The katani hakore. Why did the Mishnah talk in terms of b'di evet? This is the Gemara. Teda brings a raya. The katani hakore. The evet in l'chatchila lo. Normally, when you talk about a din, the evet,
it means that specifically the evet and not l'chatchila.
Right. Why? Because if he also held that you're yotzi l'chatchila,
you would say it.
That's a bigger chiddush, right?
Right. Sure.
It's a bigger chiddush. You're yotzi l'chatchila. So normally talking b'di evet means you're not lo yotzi l'chatchila, right? So they they both agree you're not yotzi l'chatchila, but the Chamim are mekel b'di evet and Rabbi Yossi is not. Right?
Right.
So that's how the Gemara wants to medayek. He wants to bring a raya. That's the shita of the Tanna Kama. Since it spoke about b'di evet, and the bigger chiddush would have been l'chatchila with the Tanna Kama, so we must medayek that really the Tanna Kama holds you're only yotzi b'di evet l'chatchila. That's a simple way. You're not yotzi. Let him say the bigger chiddush, correct? Right?
Right.
That's the deal that they want to make. Okay. Amrei. So now they're going to push off that deal. Amri, Hodakatane Hakora Lahodia Kocho de Reb Yossi. No.
Still you're not Yaitse.
The reason why they spoke B'di'evid was not to tell you the Tanakama holds that you're lo Yotze, l'chatchila, but to show you how far Reb Yossi goes. The Oma de Evid Nami Lo.
Right, the Rabbi Yehuda feel l'chatchila nami Yaitse.
The Reb Yehuda feel l'chatchila Nami Yotze. What?
Right.
Excuse me?
Yeah, so it's saying that, so you could say, once you could have a reason why it's saying b'di'evid, then you don't have a proof that the Tanakama holds you're not Yaitse. Maybe the Tanakama holds you are Yaitse. And the reason why it says Akari, which is a din di'evid, is just to tell you the Kach Rabbi Yossi that he holds, even in the case of di'evid, you're still not Yaitse.
Right. Because if it was talking in terms of l'chatchila, and telling me that the Chamim hold l'chatchila Yotze, right?
Be fine.
So you would have said, fine, and they're only arguing with Chatchila, but maybe they both did agree b'di'evid that you're not. Excuse me, let me say that again.
Yeah, go ahead. Again, if
again, we wanted to say there's a writer, Tanakama. He spoke b'di'evid Yotzi, that l'chatchila you're not Yotzi, correct? That's what we wanted to say.
Right.
So we said, no, that's not true. Really, he holds l'chatchila, you're also Yotze, right?
Right.
You're also Yotze.
Right.
So why didn't he say that you're Yotze l'chatchila? Because if he would have said you're Yotze l'chatchila, if the argument was only l'chatchila, right, and the Tanakama said you're Yotze, and Reb Yossi says you're not Yotze, maybe everybody would hold that
b'di'evid
Tanakama. I'm sorry.
That b'di'evid, everybody would hold that b'di'evid you are Yotze, even Rabbi Yossi.
Right. Even Reb Yossi would hold it b'di'evid Yossi. If the argument was only l'chatchila, so you'd say even Reb Yossi would hold it.
Right.
Kamash. So Kamash Malan.
Okay, so b'di'evid. Right.
Exactly. To tell you to call Reb Yossi.
Right.
So that is, Baruch Hashem, what Rabbi Yitzchak Tan Ton wants to say. When there's an argument...
Can we go back and now read... Could you go back and read it?
Yeah, let's read it.
Go back a little bit more.
Okay. לעולם כשהיו נוסעים מחומרה אשר משפטים אשר ינוסו עליהם הם חיוב ושלילה. או איסה והתה או תuma v'tor. Okay, when you're talking about a machlokus with extremes of black and white. Okay, yes and no. או הפרש יהיה הנוסק אחד ומשפטים אשר ינוסו עליהם יש מחלוקס לתנאים אמורי. Or you have a din and you have a מחלוקס תנאים אמורי on that din. לא תוכל להקשוס ולומר לפני חגה. You can't say learn one and I'll medayik the other one from it. For instance, in our case, I think, right? If you say, let's just learn l'chatchila, and I would know the din b'di'evid.
Right.
You can't say that. It's just not mukhrach. And here's this whole thing, which one is common. I'm just going to read it. I mean, I can't explain more than that. Okay. Okay. Rotzoma. Shiyoma yoso kal meoso hanosim o meoso hamishpatim umimeno nilmad hayose chomo. Learn the more Kaldin, and I'll learn Machomer, or the opposite way. It doesn't really matter here. Okay? Okay, I won't read all that because it's just going to be just going to be words. Okay? So I think that's what he wants to say here. He wants to say here that you can't medayik from in this case, a yotze and a low yotze to what they would hold the chadfiyah. It's not mukhrach. Okay?
Right.
So better than that I can't do. Maybe the next time I go through the book, I'll have a stronger treatise on it. But that's as far as I got now. Okay. This said.
Okay.
Okay. Now let's go to the next part. This Siman Vav. Okay. Now he's going to talk about the following. Le'olam keshetira b'talmud shnei tanaim o amarayim choken ze'em ze b'davama. Now he's going to explain to us why, on what basis do people argue, whether they're tanaim or amarayim. He says, the siba machlokesam hu shnei devarim. If you want to know why people are arguing, it's either one of two things. Ha'echad nikra siba, v'habeis pri or nafkusa or tachlis. They're either arguing on a siba, on a source, or they're arguing on a nafkamina.
Pre would be the result. The result of this.
The result.
What he would call, sovev.
Exactly. Or a difference in din.
Or an afkusa, or a tachlis. A tachlis would be an afkusa would be a difference in din, or a tachlis would also be the purpose.
The purpose, right. So let's see. You always have to ask yourself, what is the basis of the machlokes? Are they arguing in the siba or in the nafkus? So let's see. Let's move on. Ki tzarech ata l'das. Mahi hasiba hamani l'kol echad mehem lichlog zem zeh. Why, my timer, what is the siba, what's the source that they're arguing? U'ledas mahi svaras l'kol echad mehem. You have to understand what is the svara that each one holds that causes him to argue with his opponent. V'derech mashal. Rav, my time alone, Mark Shmuel. Shmuel, my time alone, Mark Rav. Okay, here's our famous Gemara. As I said, I think we went through this a little bit, but we have a machlokus on what mava is. My mava. So Rav says that mava is Adam Hamasik. And Shmuel says mava is Shane Hamasik. Okay, later on the Gemara is going to switch that. No, she's right. It's Shane. It's not going to switch. I'm sorry. Okay. So now, Rav Oma Mava Zu Adam, and he brings a pasuk. Oma Shoma Ataboka Vagam Laila Im Tavuun Bolu, which the pasuk is supposed to be something about eating. And Shmuel Mamav is, that's supposed to, the Shomer, it's supposed to be mad. And Shmuel says Mav is Shane because it says Eich Nichbasu Esav Nivu B'Tzilpanahai. He ate up the hidden things. So they answer my mashma, and Rabbi Yosef says what he says. Okay. Now Rav, my timer, in this machlokus of Pesukim, it seems the siba of the machlokus is how to learn these Pesukim. So they say, so why doesn't one hold like the other? So they have grammatical problems there. Omlecha mikatani nivel, and Shmuel says, okay, Rab, my time Omar Shmuel, because he has a problem with the grammar. Doesn't say nivel. Ushmuel, my time Rab, Omlecha mikatani bo. Okay. So now the Gemara concludes, Michte pro lo kamar daike, Rab, my time Shmuel. So now they say that the Sibur Machlokas, at first we thought it was how they learned the source. So since grammatically they both had a weakness, the Gemara rejects that that's the Sibur of the Machlokas. Okay? And says, Rav, my time alo Amar Shmuel, Omelacha, Miketan, I'm sorry. Since the Pesukim are not Mukhrach one way or the other, they both have problems, that couldn't be the source of their Machlokas. So Rav, my time alo Amar Shmuel. So let's try again. What is the basis of their argument? Right. Say sure it's either. So my time lo Amar Shmuel, Rav, who holds sure is Karen Shem and Regel. Why is he hold like Shmuel? Tana shor v'kol milei shor. Because he holds that shor can't be, if Mav is a prat, right? Mav is Shane, then shor should also be a prat, whether it's Karen or regal, correct?
Right.
So how come the Mishnah said shor bo malvin hever? It should have said a prat. It should have said a klal. So he says it's got to be that the shor is kolel keren shein regal, because if it wasn't, then it should have been a prat, not a klal. Is that clear?
Yep.
Okay. Rab my tamam Shmuel tana shor v'kol milei b'Shmuel u'Shmuel name hai tana lei shor. Okay, so now Shmuel, he has a problem, right? Because the word shor is kolel.
Right. So how can I say it's shein?
Yehuda tana shor lekarno or mabla sheino. So for some reason, he says he'll accept the fact that shor is not a kolel.
It's only a prat, right?
It's, now, it does make sense because the shor in the Torah, the first one is kidak shor shorei. So it could be that even though it's a kolel word, it's the shor of the Torah, right? The kidak shor shorei. It's the first one that's written. It's the one that's associated with shor. I'm just giving you a story of why he's not worried about the klal so much. Okay. Now Gemara says the result of it, if they're already now holding that what is the result, and they go into the loharis. Okay, loe hari karen shein and loharis go kids for the Sefi Gayon. Okay, loe shein and loharis. Okay, so I'm not going to go further into that, but here it's you see the modes, and in this case was either speaking or a slaughter of how to learn the words, and then they have to call that word. The other will say no. It's a prati word. Okay. What he says always has to be done. Now, why is this important? I mean, I've had this discussion. And I think that's really wrong. And he shows you that the Gemara is always an interesting time. So you either learn dial or you don't learn dial. That's a technical way of presenting it.
Hello? Could you hear me? I can't hear you. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. He's talking away. Hello. Hello, hello.
Svara that shore is a shem kovel that includes Karen Shem Regel, or is shore just a analogy to the shore of the Torah, which is Karen? Okay, in the Havamim, it's Regel, but doesn't matter. Okay, so that would be a svara, not a pasuk. Now, din means the machlokas they're having over here is not the makor of the machlokas. They really argue somewhere else in Shas, and this is fallout from some other machlokas that they're having. Okay, so those are the three. He identifies three reasons why people will argue with each other, either because they argue in pshat of a pasuk, or they have a svara what things are, or they have another source that pushes them to argue over here. Those are the three things. And you see it all over the place. It's very, very prime. Okay, is that clear?
Yep.
Okay. Now, so that's how it uses the source. Now she's going to talk about the results. Okay? Very interesting. They're not going to just argue in theory. There always has to be a practical nafkamina. Okay, for pri. Ki afal pi shekvar noda hasiba asher haniya lekol echad mehem lechol. Even if you know the source, whether it be a pasuk, a svar, or makom matzah, im kol zeh tzarech anu ledas mahu hatil eles v'hapri o nafkusa v'dinchios mehem. We have to say what was gained here, what comes out of it, what difference does it make if they argue. Here the Gemara will say, okay, good, we understand they're having a machlokes, but what practical difference does it make? Okay, so if I would ask you in Rav and Shmuel, for instance, well, what's the difference? What if
Which pasuk
shore is called or not? Or which pasuk? Well, so they learn different. What's nafkamin in the machlokes? Okay, so the big difference, what shore is, but then still, what will be the differences there? Whether shore is Karen Shan regular and Mava. So one big difference is whether man is including the Mishnah or not. Okay, and the Gemara is going to have all sorts of problems with that. But the point is like this: they're not going to argue in theory if there's no practical difference. If nothing comes out of it. That's a very because I would say let them argue in theory. Isn't it nice to have theoretical arguments? For some reason, which he says, but I don't fully understand, everything has to have a nafkamina. If there's no nafkamina, then so it doesn't matter what the source is.
It's never machlok, it's just lahag del Torah lahadir. Yeah, sometimes they say that. Taisa says it sometimes. Gemara says it sometimes.
Yeah, that's a very dochak teretz.
I guess when you're stuck.
Yeah, that's very dochak. I wish you would have worked that down, but that's very dochak, right? We don't like those. Okay, now exactly why? I guess because, I'm just guessing, I'm just throwing things out. Because we're interested in halacha, we're interested in what to do. We're not interested in theoretical arguments. Whether the earth goes around the sun or not, it doesn't affect us unless there's an nafkamin and din, because we're interested in what to do. Our whole idea in learning is the Maisa.
Right.
So there's no difference in Maisa, so what do I care? Okay. But that's my guess on why the Gemara says my Maisa. Okay. They always have to come to a practical difference. Can't be just because they're practical people. It must mean that, like I said, because since we're interested in understanding what to do, so another machlokes has to be something with some reality. Okay, so that's what he says. He says like that. What's the pre of the machlokes? And that's the word says my koloma. Ma din yeshbo ben svaraso shel zel svaraso shel zeh. What din will be different between holding this svara or that svara? Umay nafkamina. Who cares if they're arguing of the source if there's no practical difference? But שתדע כי כששואל על הסיבה רוצה לומר על סברתם שצריך הסבר לכל אחד מהם ולא בדין. ותשובה מהי הוא בדין ולא בסבר. So he says, what's the difference between these two things? When you ask about a source of a machlokus, so you have to explain a svara, okay? And each one has to have his reason for holding what he holds. But when you say my benaihu, then you're not interested in the svaras that they're holding, but what practical din is going to come out.
This is a very, very important statement. This two things, because I think a lot of people confuse the two issues. In other words, you have to know. If I'm asking you what the difference between Ram and Shmuel is, are you asking me difference in din or the difference in the svara? And you can't tell me that the difference in Ram and Shmuel. I'm asking you about the svara, what the din is. You can't tell me if I'm asking you what the difference in din is, that they have a difference in svara. It's two different things.
There's the source and the result. They're either arguing the source or they're arguing the result. Matter of fact, and you have to explain both. They have to be arguing in the source, but at least then you're going to be looking for a source. But if it isn't the result, you're going to ask, well, what din will be the... And people say, the din is the source. It's not the source. The din is the result.
Right.
That's why I say this book, again, it clarifies simple points, but it brings... It turns fuzzy learning into
clarity, right.
Exactly. And we're interested in clarity. That's what I say to people. I'm from Arkansas. Just explain to me simply. And you can tell me anything. I don't care. Maybe we'll do it at the speed of light. It'll take me a little more time. I don't care. But in the end, 1 and 1 has to equal 2. That's the beauty of Gemara. That's the beauty of the Torah. In the end, 1 and 1 has to equal 2. You have to explain how it may be the whole, but in the end, or you may say kasha, but that's what we always ask. 1 and 1 must be 2.
Right. And if you can't explain it, then go back and rethink it until it's clear. And don't just tell me the same thing over again in the same words, just with more oomph to it.
Exactly. I had my friend, Avram Zabella, he's a real chacham, So one in Europe, I got him to do a daf yomi, So sometimes the daf he would say, okay, I know, if I say it with a lot of oomph, like you said, then you'll understand it, right? He said, I don't understand it. But my friend Yaakov Jitzik says, well, the Gemara understands what I just said, But that's it. That's a very critical part. We're not just saying it's not tunes. We're not singing the song here. Things have to make sense, or they don't make sense. And sometimes you don't understand the sense, so go and find the sense. Or say you don't understand the sense. But don't just accept things that don't make sense and say, that's what the Gemara says. Okay, the Gemara understood. Okay, that's it. That's what he says. So we had two things, source and result.
Right.
And they have to explain their sources, and every time they explain their sources, sources are my timer, and results are my benaihu. Don't mix them up. Very good. Mitzarech, okay, we have a few more minutes. Mitzarech ata sheteda ki shishoel hasiba.
Yeah, we just did this.
Yeah, we just said that. Okay.
You want to stop here? Is this a good place to stop?
I think it's a good, no, let's see if we can finish this.
Okay.
That'd be great, because then we'll start the next seminar next week. Okay. He says, La'olam, keshatana hitchil dabe v'nosei echad, v'nosu alav mishpat odin ma. When he starts talking about a certain subject, he tells you a law. Ubo achar kachatana hahu lomar din acher u'mishpat acher. Then he's going to tell you a different law. And when he says it, Haniach also nose harishon velikach nose acher. He leaves the first subject, and now he switches subjects and tells you a different. He switches subject, tells you a law about a different subject. When the Tana switches subjects, it's because the first subject is not shaykh to the din of the second subject. And that's why you had to switch. Whenever there's a switch of case between in the Mishnah, it's because the first case is not shaykh to the second din. That's why the case had a switch. Because if the first case was really shaykh to the second din, why did he switch cases? So that's when the Talmud says, wait a minute, if what you're saying is true, that the second din is shaykh to the first one, then the Tana should have taken the first din and divided that first din. Excuse me, I didn't say that right. If the din in the second case is really shaykh to the first case, so the Tana should have divided the first case into those two different din. Okay, so that's again another little chop, an important rule. The Mishnah will only switch cases because the second law has no relationship to the first law. Because if it did, then it just should have been a continuation of the first. Excuse me. The second law has no relationship to the first case. Because if the second law had a relationship to the first case, then it should have been a snif. It should have been a subcategory of the first case. So by the fact that the Tana switches cases, it means that law now has no shaykhus to the original case. Okay? That's the end of that little move. Okay, Alavai will get to the place where we learn Gemara together, and we can now import all these things that we're learning, or cross-link them to actual live Gemaras. But Baruch Hashem, at least we're experiencing the moves, okay, with these great Sfarim. Okay, so we're going to stop here, and I'm going to wish you a great week. And
okay.
Hashem, tomorrow we'll pick it up.
Next week.
You see, I keep saying it over, and I hate to be repetitious, but I really, people should learn this. Basic alphabet, what are we talking about here? Instead of having to struggle, it's nice to struggle. No one says no, but it's to struggle when you don't have to struggle. And also to struggle and come up with wrong conclusions is not too productive.
Right.
So people would learn these basic rules, so then they'd be just clear about what the Gemara is doing, and they'd be able to get the real Hana of learning. Okay,
yep.
Hashem.
Okay.
Hashem. Our little efforts will somehow blossom.
Right, and Mitzvah Hashem.
After all, look, the Dark Gemara was written, hundreds of years ago.
Right.
So he's been waiting for people to read his book, and Baruch Hashem, we've done it. Okay, great. Have a great week.
You too.
We'll
all right, thank you.
Week,
okay, very good. Okay, bye.